How about that? Check, check. Are we back? Oh, goodness. Nothing but the best production here. I think we are good. Welcome back. It is a chilly 21 degrees, and goodness, I don't even think I'm going to need my blanket today because of the amount of coping and seething from the comments. I posted a TradCon breakfast video. How are we looking, guys? Are we looking okay? Sorry about that. Someday we're going to have a big time show. We'll have a real producer, and we won't have these mistakes that I continue to make. All right, we looking good? 5 by 5. Give me 5 by 5 in the comments if we are up and running, and I will reboot everything. All right, beautiful. Looks good. So, welcome back. So again, as I was saying, it's incredible that who would have ever thought that a traditional marriage with a man and wife, with a loving, feminine, submissive wife, that would cause such an uproar in the comment section. It's incredible that this relationship or traditional marriages have become the new rebellion, the new punk rock. We were laughing. Mrs. W and I were going through the comments and how people were just seething over this, and they don't understand. It's like they can't even comprehend the word submit. They're asking, what do you mean? I mean, can you give me a definition for that? Well, it's very simple. It is what it is, and it is the recipe for a healthy and happy marriage, just like it's always been. Just because you're not used to seeing this, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with it. It actually is, it's the way to go. I mean, let me ask you, gentlemen, beloved, let me ask you this. And give me sevens in the comment if you agree with me. Would you rather come home to a loving, feminine woman that didn't want to be quarrelsome, that didn't want to compete, that didn't want to argue, that wasn't keeping score? Would you rather have that, or would you want to have someone on the opposite end of the scale, a bad biatch, as they like to call themselves? Let me know. Are we going to see sevens? If you'd prefer the bad biatch, then let's see ones. But I think it's going to be very clear right here. And when I say submission, and using the term submission, it is, I guess what's not being understood is what maybe people would think was, you're just keeping your wife under your thumb, and you don't respect her individuality, and you don't respect her personality, and you're making her bow and scrape to do whatever you want. That's not what it is at all. You don't understand anything. Let me ask you ladies, would you, as a husband, would you like to have a husband that cherished you, that worked 14, 16 hours a day, busted his ass to provide for you, to protect you, to keep you clothed, to keep you in comfort so that you could focus on maintaining your home, focus on raising your children, focus on making a house a home? Would you rather have that, or would you rather have someone that was a partner, an equal, that you had to compete with, that you kept track of, where you had your own money and he had his money? I mean, really, well, let's get down to brass tacks. Which one would most people prefer? I think the traditional marriage. I adore my wife. I put her before myself. I make sure that she's looked after. I make sure she's comfortable. She's never going to be outside with a flashlight trying to see who it is that's skulking around, or an intruder or a wild animal. She's never going to be having to change the oil or the tires on her car. She's never going to have to go paint the house or do all those things. She is going to be provided and taken care of. So when we talk about submissive, someone's got to be submissive. You can't have two leaders. You can't have two presidents. You can't have two CEOs. You have to have someone that leads the family. And the God-given right has been given to the man. We have the headship. We are to be the priests of our household. And that sounds very nice. And isn't that a privileged position that you occupy? Well, not necessarily, because there's a tremendous burden that comes with leadership. I carry the weight, a tremendous weight on my shoulders. As a sole provider, I need to look after and take care of my family. I have to get up every day. I can never shirk my duty. If I don't work, if I'm not able to produce, if I'm not the economic engine of our family, then we go without. And I have taken on that mantle, that burden of responsibility, as a shelter to my wife. I am a husband. I am a band, a house band of protection around my family. I take the arrows. I take the darts. I fight the fight. so that she and my children can be protected, so she feels comfortable, safe, and secure. Now, does that mean that she doesn't have her own opinions? Does that mean that she doesn't contribute to the running of the household and important decisions? No, of course not. Of course not. We have a running agreement that we always talk things out. Now, if it's small things or things that don't pertain to her, I'm not going to go to my wife and ask permission for the things that I want to do, nor is she. But if I'm going to go out and I want to buy new tires or new wheels for my dirt bike, or I want to buy a new helmet or whatever, this is not a discussion I'm having with her. I go out and I do those things. I get what I need. Same for her. She needs to get things for the running of the house. She wants to get a new dress. She wants to get a new pair of shoes. That's not my business. But when it comes to big important decisions, if we're going to buy a new truck, if we're going to buy a car, maybe a major household appliance, we're equal on these things. We sit down, and for the most part, I listen to what she says. I will go off of what she says for the most of the purchase. She tells me that she needs a new dishwasher. Well, what do you want? And I will make that happen, whatever it takes. It is a partnership, but there's also a time where you have to have a headship. You have to have a leader, and that's the job that the man is supposed to take. That is the burden of leadership. And it may look nice from the outside, it must be nice and all that, but it also comes at I'm the one that has to get out and fix the frozen pipes. Not have to, I'm the one that does that. That's my job. That's what I do. I take care of my family. I make my wife as comfortable and as happy as possible. And the more I do, the more reciprocity I get. We reciprocate. You get to the point with a strong and healthy marriage that is traditionally laid out with a man as the head of the household, as a strong leader, as the priest of your household, where you are not keeping score of things. You are competing in a loving way to how you can outdo the other one, how you can do another kindness. For example, Mrs. W gets up and makes the coffee for me. Usually she's up. She gets up and I get dressed, come in a little bit later, and she has everything waiting for me. But I don't take that for granted. I don't say, well, that's just your personal area of responsibility and suck it up, Buttercup. That's what you have to do. I'm sorry you're tired and all that. No, I'm receptive to her needs. I make coffee probably every other time. This is because I can tell. Sometimes, I went to bed and she didn't come to bed because she was up with the baby. Maybe the baby was sick and she sat up in her room with her. Or maybe she needed to work till 12 o'clock at night helping Jack with some math or some homeschooling. I'm receptive to these things. I pay attention to her mood and how she's feeling and how stressed out she is, and I step up and do what needs to be done. Do I want to make the coffee? No. I have my own things to do, but I also understand this. And when you are constantly attentive to the needs of your loved one, and you are responding to that, you'll get that back. Women are not particularly difficult. If you just show them just a moniker of kindness, just a little bit of effort, go out of your way for a small thing. And I'm not talking about spending money or chocolate roses and all that nonsense. Just helping to shoulder the load once in a while. That's where you get it. When I do something like that for Mrs. W, I'll get it back tenfold. And when I get it back tenfold, then I'm very motivated and excited. I want to be able to reciprocate that. And then around and round we go, and then pretty soon you have just two huge banks of kindness, goodwill, and love that is just trumps over all of the competition and the keeping track and all of the nonsense that comes with modern feminism and these equal partnerships. Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's not difficult. It's not difficult. It's very sad, the analogy of the Matrix, the blue pill and the red pill. It is so apropos. There are so many people, you can see it in the comments. They just don't understand. They just can't even imagine what it would be like for a woman to submit, and what a great sin that is. I hear a whole lot less from women complaining about it than I do from men. And that's the sad part. There are just our men. I don't know why. I guess it's the public education. I guess it's just a constant stream of indoctrination that your masculinity has been stripped from you, or you can't even see something like that. It is such an alien concept that you can't even comprehend it, and you have to run away, and it just triggers you to the point where you just can't even deal with life. It's incredible. It's incredible. But we here are here to be the antidote for that. So hang on. Let's twist some tails here. All right, let's jump into the super chats here. Thank you for joining me early, by the way. This is not going to be, I'm not going to be jumping around with my times as a custom. There's something that's unavoidable. We have to go into town for some things, and then Jack, it's going to be a big day. Jack's coming up on his 18th birthday. Can you imagine? 18, goodness. And Jack is as you know, involved in competitive debate, and we're hoping he's got the talent. He might be able to do it to be able to go to nationals, and maybe he can do very well. This is only his second year, so it's quite an accomplishment. Of course, we're very proud of him. But he's growing like a weed. You know, he's basically a man now, and he's outgrown his suit. You have to dress very nicely for debate, suit and tie and all of that. So we have a babysitter for the loaf. And Mrs. W and Jack and I are going to go in and get Jack a new suit today and take him into town and have dinner and spend the whole day together. So I moved up the stream a little bit for some appointments we had, and thank you for joining us. Thank you very, very much. Goodness, let's jump into it. We have a super chat from Mr. Jack Sasquatch. Shout out to you, Jack. And Jack writes, wow, I'm actually here live today. And after my cold shower and breathing exercises, great day. Goodness, isn't it a great day? I had a good solid 3-minute shower this morning, and it was divine, absolutely divine. I came out of when I come out of the shower, I don't know how you guys are, but I am beet red, about from the neck down. Everything's just red. I come out of there and like you feel like you just want to do a primal roar. You know, you just feel so energized. I feel like I'm 20 again. It's incredible. I ran into the. I came out of my shower, ran into the kitchen. Mrs. W had the pancakes on, and I told her, man, I feel like I could take on the world today. I have not felt like this for so long. The effects are compounding. They're getting better and better and better. We're 3 weeks into the cold shower and the Wim Hof breathing method, and it has given me a new lease on life. I have incredible energy, incredible motivation, incredible clarity of thought throughout the day. But I'll tell you, man, at about 7:30, no, about 7 o'clock. About 7 o'clock at evening, I hit a wall like I have not hit before. I am so tired. Like I've just been going so hard and just had such great energy. I am ready for bed. I looked at my watch and I thought, goodness, I can't go to bed. I can't go to bed at 7 because if I go to bed at 7, that means I'm up at 2:30, and that kind of messes up my whole day. So I fought it out, wrote it out till about 8:30, and I was sound asleep by 8:30, woke up at 4:30, and man, goodness, it is excellent. I am very happy to see so many of you following along with this. This is, you need to get on board. The Wim Hof breathing method and the 3-minute cold showers are life-changing, just like Jack. Shout out to you, Jack. Welcome. Mr. Jason Barr, thank you. Thank you for your generosity. Always good to see you here. And we have Silas Belcher, who is a new member. Welcome, Silas. And you will have access to the unique content. I have the middlemen, my group of 11, my brain trust, who works behind the scenes to keep me on the straight and narrow, have spoken, and they said, we want unique content for the members, and we don't care what it is, just put it up. Unproduced, whatever's on your mind, whatever you're thinking, just put it up. We enjoy that. So I did a video on my preferred plate carrier setup for you guys, so you get to enjoy that. So I encourage you to join. Ultimately, in a perfect world, we can get to the point where we could be completely member supported. Wouldn't that be cool? To be off of the big platforms, to be no longer be under the thumb of anyone, a small, mighty group of like-minded people. That would be my dream. That would be the best. On a site, on a place where we could be uncensored and share whatever we want to do. That would get it back to the way it was in the old days, the early days of YouTube. Because YouTube is getting boring. It's really getting boring. It's so there's so much censorship. There's so many things pulled down. I have, in the last 2 weeks, I have had videos while I was watching of content creators that I have enjoyed for a long time. While I was watching their video, it disappeared. And I thought, oh, what is that? Is that my Starlink? What's going on? You refresh, go back to the site to see if I can find it, to continue watching what I wanted to watch, only to see this was pulled down for guideline violations. Nothing controversial, nothing that would be inappropriate. It's ridiculous, you know, and it just gets to the point where it's so sanitized and so curated that it takes the fun out of it. And when you get over to Rumble and you get over to some of the other sites, even TikTok, I think it's better than all of them. If you want to really get the raw feed and the real stuff and really hard, edgy content, you know, real content, Now, I really enjoy that. I spend more time over there. So that's the way it is, but we're making plans. We're going to do what we have to do to make this come to fruition. Congratulations, Jack. Good job on those cold showers. It's no joke, man. It's no joke. We have a super chat from Silas Belcher. Shout out to you, Silas. And Silas writes, 7, met my godly woman at a gas station. God provides. Yes, and that's something that I have not brought up. I have never have I received so many emails as of late from a lot of people really pouring their heart out, and most of them are from young men, and they're just basically confirming what I already know. Like, this is so refreshing to hear this content. You're the only guy, you're the only old guy, that's what they say. You're the only old guy that gets it, that gets the difficulty, that gets the mindset of these girls that we're having to deal with and how impossible the situation it is. And some of them are just, they're at their wits' end. They don't know what to do. We try to do everything. One guy told me this morning, nice guy, very articulate, it was, nice writing, obviously had his stuff put together, was saying it's beyond frustrating. I'm a pretty good catch. I got a good job. I could be a good provider. I want to have a family. I want to, I'm not expecting perfection. Actually, my standards are quite low. More important than looks would be character. Character and a companion that can help me to raise a family and to grow a business and to have a life. And he says, it's just pointless. He goes, you go out there, it doesn't matter who they are, they think they're all 10s. They think that they're all perfect. Even though they're 50, 60, 100 pounds overweight, you ask them, well, how would you rate yourself? Oh, I'm a 9, I'm a 10. How is that? Obviously, there are beauty standards. We know what those are, right? We can look to the fashion industry. We can look to Hollywood, whether that be yours or not. Everyone has their own taste, but by and large, there is a type. That is, you know it when you see it, that type of thing right there. So when these average everyday Bettys or girl next doors or these, just average 4s, 5s, and 6s, when you go talk to them and they say, oh, I'm a 10, baby. I'm perfect. I have no flaws. The delusion is incredible. How does this happen? Why is this happening? Well, why it's happening is because of social media. Because they're on dating sites, they're on TikTok, and there are so many hungry dudes, so many thirsty dudes out there giving them attention, it's blowing up their head. They can be, plus, let's not overlook this, what you're seeing with the clothing, manipulating, the makeup, the filters, the camera angles, the lighting, all these things. This is all very disingenuous. What you are seeing is not what is happening. Photoshopping, it's all changing. So they put themselves out there, and then their inbox is just flooded with, oh, you're so hot, you're so perfect, oh, I wish I could date, if I was your man, etc., 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 etc. They get blown up. Their egos get blown up, and then they're unrealistic about really what their station in life is. And then once they get on the dating scenes, well, they may have access to guys that would be out of their realm. So the truth of the matter with Chad, so what's happening, if you're a boomer here and this is all Greek to you, what's happening is that 80% of the women are pursuing and having access to about 10 to 15% of the men, the top tier men. The top tier men right now, it's the gold rush. If you're a Chad on the dating site, you are cleaning up. You have your pick, as many women as you want, because that's what they're all after. And Chad, he of course likes to have the 7, 8, 9s, and 10s, but when he just doesn't want to work for it, as they call it on a slow Tuesday, he'll go slumming. And Chad will dip down into the lower ranks, into the 4s, 5s, and 6s, just because when he shows up, they're so grateful for his attention that he doesn't have to put any effort into it, and it's a guarantee for him. So the problem is that when these 4s, 5s, and 6s, every once in a while, they trap a Chad, and a Chad comes over, they think, well, that's what I can get now. That is my new standard, and nothing else will do. Not knowing that Chad was never going to be locked down by one of these women. He was just there to run through, and that was it. And they have, for the rest of their mind, this idea that that's what they are going to, they're not going to settle for anything less. There's a term for it. It's called an alpha widow. an alpha widow, a woman that gets access to some of these guys who they think that they actually have a chance with that they don't, just because Chad just didn't want to work very hard. And that's it. I mean, there you go. If you want to try to understand what's going on in the modern dating market, I just laid it out for you. Thank you, Mr. Jason Barr, and to your member. Welcome. Thank you for your generosity. It's always good to see you here. We have a super chat from John Doden, and new member. Welcome, John. And I'm going to have some unique content for you guys. I've been enjoying doing the unique content. It is fun. It's easy to do with my phone, and expect more. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see, and I can share it. You want to see plate carriers? Again, I'm not the expert. We're learning together. I've done a little research. I try to make good purchases. I do a lot of research so you don't have to. You can kind of look what I have, and it's a good starting point, and then you can kind of tailor your decisions to what works for you. I'm practical that way. We have a super chat from John Doden. He says, just want to shout out my amazing and beautiful wife, Kaylee. You have a Kaylee. Everyone wants a Kaylee. It's her birthday tomorrow, and she is one of the rare TradCon women out there. Shout out to Kaylee. Kaylee is not typically associated with TradCon, but I'm glad that you found a unicorn. Yeah, and if you talk to a true TradCon woman, you will realize that they are indeed content. It's what they want. It's where they really find happiness. I mean, it is the pleasure. If you don't have children, as a woman, and a supportive husband that takes care of you, there's a lot of joy in that. No matter what feminism will tell you, they're not being oppressed. They're being taken care of. And who doesn't want to be taken care of? Man, that sounds like the best thing ever. I enjoy my masculinity. I enjoy being a strong leader of my household, the priest of my house, and I enjoy having a soft, feminine, subservient wife that takes care of me. Now, who really runs the show? Of course, she controls me. Of course, she sways my opinions, but she does it with the gentle gloves. She doesn't bitch. She doesn't nag me. She doesn't build resentment. I understand that I'm being manipulated, but that's okay. She does it out of love, and she does it because she knows what she has. Her intentions are for the best, for my good and for the good of the family. The TradCon woman is every man's dream. It really is. We have a super chat from Passport Spider. Shout out to you, Passport Spider. And he says, God bless your family. I am 26. My wife and I are going to start our own within a year. I appreciate all of the experiences that you share with those of us who need to help and motivate to be better men. Yeah, you don't need any help. You just need to realize that you're not alone. You're not a lone voice crying in the wilderness. We are a few years ahead of you. I'm pretty old to be here making content on YouTube, but here I am. And I've learned a thing or two, and we want to demonstrate to you, a traditional family, it's where it's at. It's where it's at. We're swimming upstream. We're pushing against everything that you've been indoctrinated with, so much of what you've been told. It's the road to misery. It's the road to unhappiness, a road to a lot of divorce, heartache, broken families. Just love one another. Stay in your lane, know where you're at, have a traditional marriage, what's always worked. Look at the divorce rates. Look at the success rates, homeschool. We're just here to encourage. We haven't got it all figured out. We have our struggles as well, but we're moving forward. Put God first in your life. Make honesty the best policy. Adhere to the golden rule. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, and we're marching forward into the kingdom. And our life it doesn't have to be a life of misery, anxiety, fear, and depression. The good book tells us, our Savior tells us, I promise you this, if you follow me, if you turn away from your wickedness, turn away from your sins, follow me, accept me into your heart, I promise you this, that your life will be better. Not only will you have the guaranteed, the blessed assurance, the promise of eternal life in the kingdom with me, free of heartache, pain, fear, death, misery, a life of a perfect life of happiness, peace, and contentment. Not only do you have that, but I'll make sure that your life is better in this world. I'll give my peace. My peace I will give unto you, the peace that defies all understanding. You can achieve a peace, beloved, in the midst of turmoil, fear, and whatever your circumstance. You can have that peace where you can move forward And although the whole world is collapsing around you, King David says, if 1,000 fall at my right hand or my left hand and 10,000 at my right hand, I shall not be moved. I won't even be, I can walk through the valley of the shadow of death with all of this fear where people are dying of heart attacks and men are falling down from fear and passing away and hiding themselves and just the worst possible situation, the apocalypse, right? You can go through there with poise, grace, confidence, and the peace that defies all understanding that only comes from God. And everyone around you will look and say, how do you do it? How can you be happy in this horrible, wretched decline, this clown world that we're living in? Well, it's simple. We have the promise. We're connected to our Father, and He provides for us what we need, not only physically, but mentally as well. It's the way. It's the way. The early church, before we were called Christians, when folks referred to them, the early church, the followers of Christ and the disciples, they were people that followed the way, the people of the way. It was the way. It's the way of life. And the Christians and the fake and pseudo-Christians have so tarnished that name, wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea to get back to that, would it? Is there anything that says that we have to be known by this particular name? Maybe we should get back to the early church. That's an example to us. We have a super chat from Michael Grubb, who's asking if I could explain more about your grounding your bed and how that is going with your sleep. Any obvious difference since you did it? Yeah, so it didn't work out very well for me. There was no negative effects of it other than I need to come up with a better solution because I put that metal tape on my bed. So what I used is the stuff that our HVAC friends use. It's a metal tape with a real sticky stuff on the bottom, and they use it for duct work when you're joining metal pipe work together or sheet metal and just to seal things off. It's a really high quality tape, but it's real metal, and I laid it across there and I grounded it out, and I swim all night. I spin and spin in my bed. That's why Mrs. W and I have to. Mrs. W and I actually have separate beds that are pushed together. That's how we have to roll. We tried to start with a king size. Well, first we started with a queen size bed, and that was not working at all. That was not enough space there. So we went to a king size bed, and even then that was not happening because I would roll and I'd turn and I'd pull all the blankets off of her, and she'd find herself out in the cold, and we'd back and forth. It was a real struggle. So then we figured it out. We have two twin beds we have Tempur-Pedic beds, the Swedish memory foam beds, and they have the motorized that they lift up and down. So you have a little remote control, and they go up and down like that. But they're independent, so they're pushed together, stuck together. But we have our own blankets, we have our own comforter, and our own wool blanket on top. So we have our own Pendleton wool blanket for the winter time we put on, and we have a lightweight, a summer down comforter and a winter comforter, and then you can curtail it. So if she wants to sit up and read, stay up a little bit longer than me, she can lift up her side. It's independent of mine, and it's wonderful. It's the key to a happy marriage. Is there's two things that will make your marriage strong. Have your own bed with your own blankets and your own comforter, and a shop. Right there. If you have those two things, it will increase your potential for having a marriage by probably 99%. I'm telling you, gentlemen, I'm speaking from experience here. I've been doing this for a while. But the grounding, so I don't know. I'll revisit that. But I've felt so much better and received such benefits of taking off my shoes and spending as much time as possible with my feet in the ground and connected with connected with nature. There is... We spend a lot of time inside. I know that you like me, and I think I don't think that's healthy. There are things going on that we don't understand. There are energies, there are vibrations, there are whatever, but I just know that I feel better when I'm outside. And the closer I am connected to big forests, running streams, my feet in the dirt, my feet in the ground, the better I feel. I almost feel like I receive an energy from it, or it's borderlining on something spiritual. If you've never been in the midst of a beautiful Pacific Northwest old growth forest of giant Doug trees. I'm talking an ancient forest. These trees are 800 years old, going back into antiquity, and the mosses and the rivers. Just thinking about it right now, talking about it, just gives me the goose shivers. And I love that. I found myself, God really started moving me into that when I've just felt compelled to take my shoes off. My family used to call me tenderfoot. I have Native American background, and we always have a little bit of fun with the old Indian names and such, because I would never take my shoes off. And if I ever had to walk across the gravel or sand or anything, I'm just a complete baby about it. My feet were so tender, always wearing boots and big shoes and all of that. Well, I felt so compelled to take my shoes off last fall. For some reason, I had no idea. It wasn't anything I read. It wasn't anything that I'd been exposed to. It was a desire, just like hunger is, or sleep, where you just have to do it. I took them off, and I haven't had them on since. I mean, of course I wear shoes when I go out. I'm not a fool. But when I can, I have my shoes off and stay connected to the ground. And I also started, I used to have an editing suite where I had an office in the house set aside, and I had all my monitors and everything, just like a Hollywood studio type of thing. I'd go in there and sit in the dark, and I shaded all the windows and sat in there like a mushroom, like moss in the dark. And God really showed me that to get out, that's not healthy for you. It's not a good idea to be in the dark and not have sunshine on your face, not have your feet on the ground, not have access to clean, pure water. This is important. This is important for your mental health, for your physical health. And that was something I was really moved upon. So the bed thing, how I came about that is I saw a guy that was having trouble sleeping. He was probably in his 60s, and he did that very same thing. It was on a TikTok video. He put the tape across there and put a grounding rod outside and was talking about the health benefits. And I looked into it a little bit, and there were several people that were saying that they were able to sleep, and some people were even claiming that they had got off opioids, and it was helping them with their pain management. So, because I had received such a benefit from taking my shoes off, that I thought, well, why not try it? But I rolled around so much that the tape all pulled up. It got stuck all over me, and it was sticking me all night. And I tried to put it down a couple times, and about, several hours into it, I tore it off and threw it in the trash. Yeah, I just couldn't do it. But that's it. I don't have anything more to tell you than that. I'm willing to try new things. We have a new member, Vistar Creative. Shout out to you. Welcome. Welcome. And you get to have your new member's badge, Mr. Overton's 940. A badge of honor, to be sure. The official knife of Proho. We have a super chat from Repentant Sinner. Repentant Sinner writes, Simpson White Knights are ruining everything, fellow firemen as well. Yeah, boy, talk about hate, man. There's always been a rivalry between the firemen and the cops, right? When I was a career firefighter in Colorado, a paid firefighter, working on an engine, right next to our fire station was the cops. Right? They had their station down there. I was looking there and see them sitting around there writing reports. We used to have some fun with them. It used to be a fun thing for me to do. We'd go to buy the day-old donuts, and I would sneak down there at night after shift, me and my friends, and we would take those donuts and we would file them on their antennas of their squad cars. That was always a good time, yeah. Anything we could do to cause them, it was just a friendly rivalry. One of my favorite pastimes I would usually, as lead medic on car wrecks and crashes and stuff, the cops would show up, and they're like, oh, what can I do? What do you want me to do? I used to delight in and said, why don't you go stand over there by that traffic cone and direct traffic? It's the little things in life. I forgot what we were talking about here. Oh, White Knights and Sinners. Fellow firemen. Yeah, so when I went off on the cops the other day, I said that the firemen should be disbanded as well. That didn't go over very well, but that's the way I feel. You can only speak what you think. Yeah, and White Knights, that's the problem, is Simpson White Knights. It's that's the reason why so many of these girls have their egos blown up, because of these thirsty dudes. They just don't get it. And there's so many of them. They really are the enemy. They're really the reason behind all of the tremendous popularity of OnlyFans, because they're the ones supporting them. These girls would not be creating OnlyFans accounts if there weren't White Knights and blue-pilled simps that were supporting them. The reason why this is so prolific is because it works. because these dudes are hungry. It's sad. It's really sad. These guys are completely in the dark. They don't know what's going on. The women are preying on them with OnlyFans and that sort of thing. A lot of men are preying on them. You know, the dating coach, that whole genre. You know, hey, just pay me, $300 for a 15-minute phone call, and I'll tell you how to. You know, they're acting out of desperation. It's sad. They don't have anything. They don't know what to do. They can't. If you are sub 5'7" or shorter, and you are just of average look and not particularly attractive, I mean, you really are in a tight spot. These women won't even pay any attention to you. They're only focused on the top 20%. Not all. Do I need to continue to say it? Not all. So whatever happened to Andrew Tate? Where's he at? He was all over the internet. I haven't seen him around for a while. Is he still in jail? We have a super chat from Mr. Tyler Borgerding. Good to see you back. Welcome, Tyler. And Tyler writes, do you view daughters of divorced parents similarly to single mothers? Also, off topic, what are the fans on the wood stove? Do you view daughters of divorced parents similar to single mothers? No, there's two very different things. You know, there was a couple women that got their noses out of joint the last couple days that were single mothers because they had lost their husbands. They were not single mothers. They were widows. That's a completely different thing. That's not at all the same thing. You have a woman that was happily married. Well, probably, I'm gonna have to assume a virtuous woman, that her mate dies and she's found herself, raising kids by herself. That's not a single mother. That's not at all a single mother. That's a divorced woman. That woman is still honorable. She did nothing wrong. She has to deal with and cope with the situation the best that she can. And the good book actually gives us very, very strict instructions that you need to, as a Christian man, you need to be sympathetic to this, especially their children. If you have in your community or in your circle of influence a divorced or a widowed woman, then you have an obligation as a follower of the way, here we go, a follower of the way, to help and provide for them, to step in and shoulder some of the burden that her husband is no longer able to do. That's a very, very different thing. You know, the stigma is not on you. The stink is not on you if you find yourself in that situation. If you are a baby mama, or you divorce raped a man, or 80% of divorces now are filed by women, or you because of hypergamy, you decided to try to trade up and it didn't work out for you, and now you find yourself without your husband because you tore down your family with your own hands, as the good book tells us, then the stink is on you and the stigma is on you. It's a very, very different thing. As far as these little fans go, these are they're actually little engines. They're made by a company called Warp 5 in the UK, in England. And they are similar to a steam engine, where pressure builds and the water turns into the steam, and the steam pushes a piston, which activates a rod, which turns the wheel. You know, we've seen how the locomotive work. You know, it's a pretty simple process. These work on that same principle. I can show you here. They're hot, so I have to get a fire glove on. So what happens is the top of the wood stove becomes hot when it reaches about, maybe 250 degrees, maybe 225. It will activate what they call a diffuser. Hopefully I won't burn myself here. And they're lovely, lovely little engines. Oh, my glove is searing. That's really hot. So inside this pedestal is it's like a piston. I think it's called a displacer that goes up and down in the bore. As there's a lot of mass. That thing was hot, man. Whew, right through my fire gloves. As that heats up, the air rises and it pushes that piston up, and you can see it's connected to that little center rod that's going up and down right there. Now, on the other side of the crank is a little graphite piston, and that acts like a valve, and that relieves the pressure. So as this heats up and the air rises and starts to expand in that chamber, it pushes that displacer up, and the little piston works like a valve train on a regular engine, opening and closing it, letting the air out, which gives a little bit of energy to turn that crank. And that crank is hooked to a small pulley with a little rubber O-ring. This is a geared down version, and then that turns that little fan. And what it does is you can really you can increase the efficiency of your wood stoves if you put a fan on them. Because in a big room like this, this is a 40 by 40 shop, just having the wood stove, you're relying upon ambient, you're relying upon, what am I calling it? Just the, I know the term, not convection, conduction, of the air around it. So you can find on far ends of the shop or your house, you won't get the heat. It doesn't mix it up very well. It's just like in a bathtub, like when you grew up with my mom. I remember put little kids in the bathtub. The bathtub was big. You'd be on one end, and the water's hot over here, and the water's cold over here, and how you stir it around, right? So it all mixes up and is together. The same principle. These just blow across that hot surface and help to get the air out. It makes a tremendous difference where I'm sitting, which is maybe 6 feet away from the stove, to get that warm air over to me. And just kind of you get some convection going. So, and they're beautifully made. They're little heirloom items. They're not cheap Chinese. They're quite exquisite. They're expensive. They're not toys. I didn't. They very graciously sent these to me. I didn't pay for these, but after having two of them, if something happened to them, I would buy one. I enjoy it that much. It's a really great conversation piece, and I just enjoy them. They're beautiful, beautifully made. I appreciate the craftsmanship. But shout out to you, Mr. Tyler. Yeah, thank you. And new member, welcome. We have our new member, Avionics SM. Shout out to you, Avionics. Prepare to enjoy the original content. There's gonna be more of that. We're gonna be doing a live stream here. I've got a fun live stream set up for you guys, members only. I just haven't had the time. We've just been rushing around here like a one-armed paper hanger. But it'll slow down here towards the end of the week. And I'll get that out to you guys. But welcome. We have a super chat from Mr. Darren Gray. Shout out to you, Darren. And Darren writes, "Good morning, Mr. W. Greetings from Kelowna, BC. Quick question. Have you ever spent any time in the beautiful Okanagan? Sweet summers, fantastic snow in the winter for play, and love your content." I have not. I've wanted to go up there and do a canoe trip. That's something that I've always wanted to do, but I've been worried about the mosquitoes. Don't you guys have a bunch of mosquitoes up there? I love the Midwest people. Growing up in a Christian cult, as I did, I was not exposed to the world. I was very exceedingly sheltered. We were taught that anyone outside of our church organization was the enemy, and we were forbidden from fraternizing with them. So we didn't, and we just didn't get out, didn't know the world too much. So when I finally left that and got out and got to experience different people from different regions, I've always enjoyed that. I don't take it for granted. I think it's so interesting. I remember the first time I met a Yooper. You know what a Yooper is? A Yooper, correct me if I'm wrong, is a man from the Upper Peninsula, up north of Minnesota and those areas. And they have a very distinct and interesting dialogue or accent that I'd never heard before. And I never forget the first time I met a Yooper. He was our fire boss. Now, in the fire business, there are national and international teams that are designed, that work under a common design, a common command structure. And we have multiple types, types 1, type 2, and type 3, according to the incident of what it needs to be. But the big teams, the big type team, is it the type 1 team? I always forget, type 1 or type 3. The Forest Service always mixes stuff around, and 3 is sometimes more, and then 1 sometimes more. Maybe it's a type 1 crew. So these guys there'll be a fire boss, and then they'll have a whole team around them, and this team works together, and they're always together. They'll have weather people, they'll have radio specialists, they'll have people that print out maps. It's pretty impressive. So when the call comes in, if Fuji catches on fire and it's ripping up there, we got multiple torching in the crowns. they'll call out the big guns, and one of these teams will show up. And you never know where they're going to come from. They could come from, I've had them come from, one came from the Minnesota area, or at least the fire boss was from there. I worked on a fire where the team came over, they were Australian, which was quite interesting. They had a very different way of fighting fire, much more aggressive, and they were willing to take much greater risks than what the American teams would take, which made the fighting the fire way more effective and more fun, in my opinion. Also, just as a side note, an interesting note about that Aussie team is that they requested very different apparatus, very different equipment than we were used to working at. They had their own ideas of how to fight fire, so it was very interesting to see how they attacked a fire in the mountains when they're used to fighting fire in the bush, in the brush and all that. It's kind of a side note, but it was an interesting thing. But on this particular fire, I think it was a Type 1 team, the fire boss, he was a Youper. And Midwest man, he's a good guy. You know, he's not braggadocious, he's not boastful, he's not pimpering and pampering himself like West Coast man does. He's just all about being practical. That's the thing about Midwest. That's why I tell you, gentlemen, listen, if you want the best possible chance of success for a wife, you need to find a Midwest woman. They're practical, no nonsense. They're going to have a few pounds on them, but you know what? You can look past that. You can learn to love anything, but they're good women. And they'll always show up with a hot dish, which is not nothing, right? So Midwest woman is the best woman because she just is free from the craziness of the coast. Stay away from women on the coasts. West Coast, East Coast, that's where Crazy Town is. Just avoid that like the plague. Just go for Midwest woman, and you will have a much, much better rate of success. But I'll tell you, so he showed up. So we're having the morning meeting. The Youper, the UP fire boss, little short guy with his jeans on and a little tiny little cap. Let's see if I can, I'm not very good at impressions, but I'll try to do it. But he walked up in front of about 1,500 guys like this. Am I in frame here? And he walked up with his hands in his pocket, and he said, well, I guess we're just going to go ahead and go on up there and put out that fire, eh? When he said that, the entire group of all these men and women, it was just a roar, a ruckus roar of laughter, because it was so funny. We were just not expecting that. It was the cutest thing. So after that, I've always been very fond of Midwest and Youper man. They're pretty good people. Pretty good people. Yep. We have a super chat from W Fan. Shout out to you, W Fan, and he writes, "Good morning, Mr. W. Greetings from." Sorry, I just reread that. Goodness, public education rears its ugly head. We have a super chat from W Fan. Shout out to you, W, and new member. Welcome. Shout out to you. Looking forward to seeing you over on the members live stream. He writes, was it difficult for you navigating premarital fun? No. When you're a Chad, it's not difficult at all. You have to, no, I wouldn't, difficult. No. No. I should be careful with this. Yeah, well, you know, I have a past. Let's not try to sweep it under the rug. No, I'm 6'4". I worked out a lot. I was, 210, 220. I was a firefighter, wildland firefighter, motorcycles, cool trucks, not afraid to talk to women. Do you think I had problems? I did not. We have a super chat from, was it difficult? I hope Mrs. W's not watching this. We don't talk about those things. We have a super chat from Chai T. Welcome, Chai T. And he writes, after a major accident, baby died, exchanged to cruelty and betrayed our marriage. I'm not single now because I wanted this. I am now without any family, lonely, don't know how to meet good partner. Goodness, after a major accident, baby died and ex changed to cruelty. Oh my goodness. I don't know what could be worse than what Chai T's going through right there. To lose a child. I mean, divorce would be bad. I understand divorce would be bad if anything happened like that and I lost Mrs. W. That would be That'd be a hard one if I could ever get over it. I don't know. But losing a child, I don't know, man. It's just unnatural. It's just not something you even think about. I always think, I mean, I'm older than my children. Of course, that would be a day that I'd never have to see. I'd never experience it. I don't know. I wish I could give you some advice. I don't know. I have known. A good friend of mine went through this. He lost his firstborn, and we were part of that. In that it was a lingering thing that took a long time. And we spent a lot of time up in the hospital with them. They were up at a child's hospital for a long time, dealing with this. And we witnessed it firsthand and experienced it. And it was horrible. It was horrible. I can't relate. It wasn't my child. As sad as it was for us, it was no comparison to what they had to go through. So I'm not unfamiliar with it. I've seen it and been around it. One thing that I understand that can cause a problem between a marriage like that, and I don't know if this is helpful, maybe you can corroborate this, is that men and women grieve very differently. And if a woman, I have seen situations in the past, if she's looking at her husband and she gets the impression that he's not grieving like she is, she's crying and weeping and hysterical and just unconsolable, and rightfully so. We all grieve different ways, where it's often a case for a man to pull in and to be stoic. And in so doing, it's not that we're not grieving just as much, if not more. It's just that we're trying to be something solid for our wife. We're trying to hold it together. And that's what we do. We take those arrows. We take that abuse. That's the role God has given us. We've been given the ability to do that, and we'll eternalize this. I remember reading a story similar to this where a family that had lost a child, and after the news, the wife saw her husband go grab his tools and go up and start working on a project. I think he was working on a leaky roof up on the shed. And she was incensed by this, that don't you understand what I'm going through? Don't you understand what we lost? How could you go out there and do that? How could you possibly not be down here grieving with me? We want to fix things. We want to make things better. And it's very difficult for us as men when you lose a child or a loved one and it's out of your hands. It could be in the hands of the doctors, or it just happened and you weren't there. You didn't have the ability to be there and to change the situation. And when we can't fix things, that's the hardest thing for us. And I don't know all the situations there, but I think that the man was just trying to deal with it. And the only thing that he could think to do was to try to do something to benefit his family and to finish this project. And his wife, and I know they talked about it later. I don't remember if it was a book or where I read this later, and they came to understand what was going on, and the wife realized how he was dealing with the grief, but she didn't see it that way. So I don't know. I don't know your situation. It could have been something like this, but that's tough. Goodness, it's a cruel old world we live in. I'm sorry you had to go through that. It crosses my mind. I have an 18-year-old boy on the road now. He's out of my control. I've always been able to protect my children. Either, we've never put our kids in public school. We've never put our kids in daycare. We've always took on the responsibility of raising them and protecting them. They've never been out of our sight, apart from being with grandparents and family, occasionally. But they've always been around us. And now Jack is out in the cruel world on his own and driving in his own car and stuff. And the roads are slippery. We live in the mountains where they get snowy and icy, and I worry about him. I do. I put a GPS track. He knows about it. I told him. That was the part of the condition of him getting a car. I put a GPS tracker on his car, not to keep up on him. I don't invade his privacy. I never look at it when he's off doing his thing. When he's with his girlfriend or with his friends, I give him that privacy. But I do look at it when he has a curfew, when he's supposed to be home. And if it's running a little late, or it's 10, 15 minutes before he gets home and I want to go to bed early, you bet I go on there and check on it. Just want to check and see where he's at, know where he's at. But it's tough. He's 18. He'll be 18 in a couple days. And yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry. That's terrible. As far as how to meet a good partner, that is the big problem right now, isn't it? That is the big problem. Try to think what I would do. Like if I, God forbid, but if I found myself in a situation where I was alone, for whatever reason, I was widower. What would I do? Like if I was going to go try to find a good woman, I don't know would I remarry or not. I would want a partner, but I don't know if I would get traditionally married. I would be monogamous to whoever this partner was, and I might have some sort of a ceremony, but I would not get involved with the state. It wouldn't be a state-sanctioned marriage. She would understand. Our agreement would be quite simple. I'll be your man, you'll be my woman, but the door is always open. If for any reason you don't want to be here, or you're not happy with this relationship, you go out that door, but you'll go with what you brought. You won't ruin me, and you won't take my possessions. You won't take all of the effort of my labor. That will remain with me and my children. So she would have to understand that and know that. That would be the agreement, and it would be. And if she was a virtuous woman and over time proved herself, I would participate in some sort of a ceremony, but it would be a religious ceremony. It would be between the two of us and our God. It wouldn't have anything to do with the state. But how would I go about finding that? Wouldn't be dating sites. I wouldn't go anywhere near that. Probably word of mouth. It would be friends and family that would know. I would want to talk to people and be introduced to a woman that was a known commodity. Even if, and if she was, I probably wouldn't marry a divorced woman. I certainly wouldn't. But if it was a widowed woman, or and I'd probably marry someone younger than me as well. I wouldn't have a problem marrying someone 15, 20 years younger than me. I wouldn't be opposed to starting, even having more children. Men have that option, that ability. But I would probably find someone younger that was more amiable, traditional values. I don't know. Hopefully I never have to experience that. But it'd be tough. It's tough out there. Mr. Josh Brashear, my thoughts on Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses, the big problem with Jehovah's Witnesses, and shout out to our Jehovah's Witness friends. I mean, a lot of them have very good intentions. They have a wrong theology. They don't believe Christ is God. They have their own Bible. Be leery of any religion that can't freely teach from any of the good Bibles that we have. Any church that has an exclusive Bible only to them, that they can only preach from, be leery of that. See, they've went in and they've rewritten the book to write out any divinity of Christ. They don't deny that he was a good man, but they do not acknowledge the fact that he is the Son of God. And that right there is a non-starter. So they are heretics in comparison to the true faith. But no ill will. There's a lot of good folks in there. There's a lot of good folks in bad systems. There's a lot of good folks in Catholicism. It's not the people that are to be condemned. It's the system. It's the heretical system. That's the problem. We have a super chat from Dubby for Life. Shout out to you, Dubby. And Dubby writes, clarifying for a W fan, do you have any advice for a young man when pursuing a woman, keeping the marriage bed pure? Yeah, so I think what you're talking about, so a real heavy burden that's been put upon a lot of men is from the New Testament when Christ was teaching. So he was teaching in front of a group, and he says, it's been said in the past, if you commit adultery with a woman, that you have sinned. But I say that if you even look upon a woman with the thought of adultery in your mind, I say that that's the same thing. Well, the people marveled at that, like, goodness, who can be saved? Are you serious? How could you possibly do that? How could you be married to a woman for 20, 25 years and not have your eyes wander. Not when being intimate with that woman, not have your mind wander to something that you looked at on the internet or some 304 that was running around like a strumpet on the street that you can't get out of your mind. We have to deal with these things. These women, their currency is attention, and they do everything that they can do to get attention. Yeah, it's like whenever a woman wants to protest anything, or stand up, or get her point, or hear her voice, her voice wants to be heard. What does she do? They take their clothes off. That's what they all do. They protest. They take their clothes off. Like, look at me. This is what they have. This is their currency. This is what they do. This is the weapon that they use against us, and they use it more now than ever. Now, it was a problem back in those days as well. So I think I'm getting your drift here, but I can address that. So personally, we have to really lean on the promises of God. Either you believe or you don't believe. Because if God says something, if you read a promise that he will do something for you or he will help you through a difficult time, but do you really believe it? Because I believe it. And so for me, and we all struggle with these situations. How can you not, right? When that starts to creep into my head, into my mind, I immediately go to the promises of God. I go back to the Old Testament where we're given the commandments of in this situation, God tells us, be satisfied with the wife of your youth, is what the good book tells us. Let her breasts satisfy you. This is written in the Old Testament. Right there, that's what I start with. When those creeping things come into my mind, I go right to there. Be satisfied with the wife of your youth. Be satisfied with the woman that God has given you. When you have the urges as a man, when you want to fulfill sexual desire, let her body, let her hair, let her breasts satisfy you. That's the commandment that we're giving. Okay, so we start with that, right? Well, if that's not enough, that's where you start, then the promise is, God also said that I will not allow you to be tempted more than you're able to resist. And I recite that. I write to him, I remind him, I'm like, God, you promised this. You promised that I would not be able to be tempted more than I'm able to resist. And if you just put a little bit of effort and you pray, and you can do that, you can even pray that when you're being intimate with your wife. Pray that. And those promises that he's given you, that will give you the ability not to be overcome, and the one that is in me is more powerful than the one that is in the world, and I can do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthens me. Those are the three prayers that are in my mind that I recite and I remind God about. And that's been enough. And I find that it passes, and you can go back and focus on and be intimate with your wife. It's something that everyone has to do. It's a very powerful temptation. And it's when God said that, when Christ said that, he meant it. That looking upon a woman and lusting after her is the same as committing adultery. And if you're God, if you don't believe he has the ability to give you the tools that you need to resist that and to stay physically and mentally pure with the wife of your youth, then something's wrong. Then you don't really have true faith and you don't really believe the promises. So that's what I do, and that's what works. We have a super chat from Avionics SM. Good to see you back, Avionics. And he writes, 25, soon getting married after 8 years, a wonderful woman and future mom. Only problem, stubborn wannabe feminism, even though secretly enjoying being submissive. Calls your content brainwashing. Thoughts? Well, you're asking for trouble. If you're asking for trouble, you have a woman that's been contaminated by feminism. You're going to have to make that decision. But let me warn you about this. You know what you're getting into. If she's using the word brainwashing for good biblical principles that we're sharing right here, she's not on the same page. So you are marrying a feminist, and don't come here bitching when she acts like a feminist and gives you trouble and difficulties. And the problem is not going to get better when you have children. The problem is going to get worse because you're not going to see eye to eye on how to raise kids, on what should be taught, on what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. The Bible tells us not to be unequally yoked. You are about to unequally yoke yourself with someone that has opinions and beliefs that are antagonistic to your own. So you have been warned. Go and do what you're going to do what you want, but don't bitch about it and don't be surprised when it blows up in your face. Now everyone can change. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just warning you what's likely the outcome. We have a super chat from GLG ForgeWorks and member for 1 year. Good to see you warm and well. Good to see you as well. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Shout out to GLG Forgeworks. You've been faithful here for a long time. We're always good to see you. And from Dylan, new member, welcome. Our newest member, Dylan. Welcome. Dylan writes, thoughts on Eastern Orthodox Church. As I learn more, I feel further pulled in that direction. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I've been looking into that myself a little bit. You know, one of the guys, one of my favorite guys on the internet that's been completely canceled, and you're not going to be able to find him anymore, is Roosh V. Roosh V was one of the OG pickup artists back in the day, and wrote books, had a really popular YouTube channel, was really involved in the manosphere, you know, kind of one of the leaders for a long time. And he, over the last few years, has made a complete transformation from basically a playboy pickup artist teaching men how to manipulate and take advantage of women in a lot of ways. You know, play the game. They're playing it. He was just teaching men to play it as well. Has got rid of all of that. Even took down all of his books and ebooks, which were his only source of income, and has become very active in the Christian Orthodox faith. And he runs a private blog. He's a very smart guy. I actually met him. I contacted him and spent a day with him when we were at the other homestead. I don't know if I ever mentioned this or not, but he came out. He was going across the country, doing a tour, and he was doing daily vlogs about this whole experience and kind of a pilgrimage type of thing. And I spent the day with him, and he's found that to be the truth, the true Christian faith in the Eastern Orthodox religion, and speaks of it quite often on his blog. I'm not there. I haven't gone there. I don't know that much about it. I know they're very traditional, very conservative, but I don't know that I can really share an opinion of you. I realize, I think that the crazier that churches get, the Western churches and the speak English. The Unitarian nature of these churches, where no longer are we going to follow the teachings of the Bible, but everything is open and everything's good and rainbow flags out front and all of that. You know, that's not the way. And there's a lot of folks that are also agreeing with that. They're looking for something that's pure, true, and original. And the Eastern Orthodox Church is very non-compromising, very traditional. And that's a big draw for a lot of people. And I think that the more persecution that comes upon the Western Church, and the further they get out there and further away from the true teachings of God's Word, the more people are going to be searching and drawn into these more traditional churches. But I can't speak on it other than just what I've learned from Roosh V. And I follow his blog, and he writes about it extensively. They're pretty tight with the Catholics. That's one concern I have. I'm not into all that iconology and all that stuff. There should be no middleman between you and your God. Whenever there's any sort of a middleman where you've got to take your prayers or your communications to a sinful man that will take them to God for you, that is a huge red flag. That's something we do not want. So I'm not saying that the Eastern Orthodox Church, that's what they do, because I don't know. I'm ignorant about it. But that's always something that, you know, you get my spiritual antennas up. That's a concern for me. Thank you, GLG. We have a new member. No, super chat from Ill State Fishing. Is that Illinois State Fishing? Mercy and goodness. Shout out to you. We're all about fishing here. And Spartan 219. And Spartan, I did get your email this morning. I started to skim through it, and then I had to start preparing for the live stream. I will dedicate some time. I will read it. I will cogitate on it, and I will get back to you and see if the two of us can't come up with a good strategy to get you out of your difficult situation. So give me through the weekend. I want to give it the time that it deserves. You spend a lot of time writing and sharing your personal story, and I want to give it the credit where credit's due. So it's there, it's saved. I will be on it. I will be back to you on it, and we'll work it out. Don't worry, hang in there. We'll figure out a solution. There is safety in a multitude of counselors, and I wouldn't even be opposed to even bringing up some of your issues and concerns with some of the middlemen, because we have a very, very solid group there that is wise and can help. You're not alone on this, so just hang in there. Thank you. He also writes, sent you an email. Do you have arthritis or does the winter weather make your bones hurt? Cold shower helping, have yet to try the shower. No, I've never had any arthritis. I've been very blessed to be physically healthy, even though I've abused myself terribly. I have I have a bad broken foot where I can't wear normal shoes. Like when I wear ski boots, I have to take and cut a big hole in the side because I broke my foot in a BMX bike crash. So that gives me some grief, but I can manage it. It's not terrible. I have messed up my hips and back from too many years of sitting on excavating equipment and tractors without suspension seats, and that's something I have to deal with. I have a broken collarbone. That gives some problems and some neck issues and a bad shoulder. And other things I can't speak of, but I got all sorts of problems. Trust me, I got problems to go around. But there's been nothing that's really prevented me from being active. I can still, I did a 24-hour endurance race with my son. I rode 400 miles at race intensity on my dirt bike at 53. And also, we were also as a team of two, were able to place pretty high in the thing. So that right there, I'm happy about that. I had no illusions of winning or anything, but just to be able to do that is not a small thing. I recently did 80 miles, 82 miles, 83 miles, around a mountain on my snow bike. And that was a great adventure. I'm doing these things and I'm still able to go out and do 100 hard miles on trail and stuff. So I'm really grateful for that. Now, is it without pain? No, I have to cheat a little bit. I have to have, in the past, I could have just jumped on any old infernal machine and went and did those things, but now I have very good equipment, and I invest in suspension on my trucks and on my cars. I have to have these tools to help me to be able to do these things, so I have to cheat. But I have the money and the resources to do that. So I can go hang with the young guys, but that's only because I have really, really good equipment. So that's my clue. But yes, the cold showers have helped tremendously. The numbness in my hands, I haven't thought about it for 2 weeks. How I was complaining about that all the time. My hands going numb. That's just something that went away, and I hadn't even thought about it. And it went away when I started doing the cold showers. So is there a connection? Is it placebo? I don't know. But the benefits are tremendous. Just from my sense of smell is increased, goodness, 7-fold. My ability to concentrate. I noticed it, the biggest time I noticed it was when I was playing, a week or two ago, I was playing Mario Kart with Sweet Loaf. And I had played before the cold shower. My mind's just, I'm having trouble keeping up. I'm an old boomer, how I am. I can't even play on a keyboard. I have to play on a console or a controller. And I'm barely hanging on and, just focus on this. After the cold shower and the Wim Hof breathing method, it was like everything snapped into focus. I was very clear of mind. My decision-making was very quick. My reflexes were very quick, very fast. It was remarkable. It was very interesting to see that. I hadn't put that together, but my sense of smell is tremendous. Like Mrs. W is always really careful. I cannot abide anything with odors or scents. Any soap that she uses or laundry detergent, everything has got to be super, super clean. We got to know all the contents, no chemicals, we don't use any of that garbage. I only wear cotton, wool, or linen, organic. I don't, if I can, but pure, clean stuff. I know where the dyes come from. I'm sensitive to that sort of thing. And that's heightened tremendously. Like I can smell now, when I go into a restaurant or a public place, I can smell all of the chemicals on people's clothes, all the detergents and everything. It's really incredible. There's a lot of things happening, but my focus and my overall just being optimistic, being happy, excited for life, jumping out of bed, sleeping better, all these things are all a direct result of that. So it's not just one thing, it's an amalgamation of many things. And I'm only 3 weeks in. What can we expect at 10 weeks or 6 months? You need to do it. Why would you not do it? You have a cold shower, right? We all have cold showers. If you don't, you have a garden hose. 3 minutes. 3 minutes and the Wim Hof breathing method. It doesn't cost you anything. Just go, the videos are all over the internet for free. But I'll get with you, Spartan. We have a super chat from Cedar Party Lewis. Shout out to you, Cedar. And Cedar writes, how would you talk to the kids if they started dating someone that you knew is bad for them It makes me think arranged marriages wasn't such a bad thing. No, of course, Mrs. W and I have always had this joke with people, and our friends are appalled, like we're all about arranged marriages. And I'll tell you, when people see, Jack because of his character, he's a good kid, but really because he's had a beautiful mother that has raised him properly, and educated him properly, and seen to it that, she always says, this is an important job. I am raising another woman's husband. And she takes that role very seriously. And we have, it's still tongue in cheek, but as times are changing, it is a very common thing that people that meet Jack, that have daughters of similar age, those comments are made. Too bad we're not back in the time of arranged marriages. Wouldn't Jack, and those things are coming up, so we think that that's so outlandish and so crazy, but it's not. It's a better way to do it. Let me ask you this. Who is in a better position to pick a suitable mate for a 16, 17, 18-year-old girl? Her father and mother of the age and wisdom that can look out, check out the family, do a little checking around, find out what's going on, talk to all parties involved, or a hormonally raging 17-year-old, 18-year-old? I mean, can we just use some common sense here for a moment and get away from the fairy tale and my freedoms and all this BS? I mean, come on now. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to do that. We don't live in, that's not our culture. It's ridiculous to think about. But what I have done and Mrs. W have done is we work quietly behind the scenes. We listen to our kids. We make suggestions. We try to guide them in a particular way. We try to create environments where they will be amongst healthy people and discourage environments where they'll be put outside of healthy people so that good choices can be made. But we keep our mouths shut. We will give advice when it's asked. Jack's not a child anymore. He'll be 18 now. But he's so comfortable. One thing that, I'm not going to get into personal things out of respect for him, but he's comfortable enough to come to us with questions without us prying, that are very personal. And Mrs. W and I, after he does this, he's done this, he does it all the time. We marvel. And we say, goodness, I can't even imagine. I would have never, ever, as a Gen Xer, I would have never, ever came to my parents with that. Never. Just assume cut off my hand. Didn't do that. But he feels comfortable in doing that. And he does that because he's soft and he's a tender boy. And he lives in an environment with parents that make him feel comfortable that he can do that will listen to him. And that's everything. That's everything. And I got to be careful. This is not to come off as bragging or being on a high horse or pedestalizing myself. This is what happens when you follow biblical principles. This is the natural outgrowth. This is the natural thing that happens. When Christ tells us, I tell you, if you turn from your wickedness, if you turn away from the world, if you turn to me, if you read and listen to my teachings, my precepts, I'm telling you that your life is going to be better. Not only will you have the promise of eternal life, but your life will be better in this world. That's what he's talking about. Those principles, it's a bunch of little things. Those principles, by following and keeping your family intact and teaching your children traditional values, they manifest in that way, where the life is easier. Life is easier for us because he's listening to his parents. Because of these things. We're not amazing people. We don't have a special gift. We just plugged in to the Word of God. We plugged into the Word of God, and this is the fruit that you can receive. It's nothing special here. It's just the way that it works. You've been lied to. The way that you've taught in school and media is the wrong way. It's the road to destruction and unhappiness and misery, pain and sorrow and suffering. Now, there's going to be that for all of us. We live in a fallen world. Would never be intended to be here. But God helps you to make the best of this living behind enemy lines, way better than if you follow the teaching and the precepts of the world. It's just the way of nature. Like 1 and 1 is 2, like winter and summer. There's just things that are just natural. There's just that just work. and following biblical principles works. We have to wrap it up, gentlemen. We have good to see Jezza 4300 back and new member. Welcome, Jezza. Jezza writes, so what was your BMX brand of choice? Mid-school here, I don't ride much anymore, but enjoying collecting frames back from the 90s. Well, Redline. Redline, I remember the first time I saw a Redline, there was a BMX bike shop, and my first bike was a Huffy Pro Thunder with mags, with yellow mags. You probably know the bike. That was the entry BMX bike for a lot of kids. But then once we got into it, I used to race BMX. I raced with the AMA, the American, it was the ABA. There was the NBA, the National Bike Association, and the American Bike Association. And I raced ABA. Back in the day, there used to be municipal tracks. BMX was really popular, and there were tracks all over the place. And on the weekends, we would go and race. They were all sanctioned and nice and all that. But once we got into that, we got into nicer things. But the Redline was good. Some of the guys rode Mongoose. Mongoose was cool. Torker was cool. A little bit fringe. There was Panda. Race Incorporated. Race Incorporated was an aluminum frame where the other ones were chromoly. I never had one, but I wanted one. Race Incorporated would have been my dream bike, but a Redline was the business. And I had a Panda too. I think I raced a Panda Pro-Am. We have a super chat. Our new member, Ryan Barnes. Shout out to you, Ryan. I think we got that already. And thank you, Jezza. Yeah, I've never been nostalgic, and I've always made fun of the boomers for all their nostalgic stuff. My dad was, toward the end of his life, was getting nostalgic about things he had when he was young, and I thought, oh, that's kind of quaint and silly. But I get it now. I've actually went on, a couple months ago, I went on a vintage BMX site of some guys like you're talking that restore them, and I thought, that I would be pretty cool to rebuild the bike I had when I was 12, 13 and racing BMX. I remember everything perfectly. I remember the super neck. I remember the V-bars, the grips, everything. I remember everything. I could spec it out just from off the top of my mind, and that's 40 years later. It was cool. This will be the last one. We'll take the last from Mr. Ryan Barnes, and new member. Shout out to you, Ryan. Thank you. Thank you for your generosity. And Ryan writes, a longtime watcher, new member, in the process of becoming Eastern Orthodox. As my relationship with Christ has gotten closer, my life has become infinitely better. Yeah. I have nothing bad to say about that, and I'm actually I do feel compelled to look into it. It does keep kind of coming into my life, or people that I know are getting involved with it, or learning about it, or searching into it. I don't know. Wouldn't surprise me if I got involved with it. It's hard to say. We have a work to do here. God has people in many places. That's a very strange thing to happen. Yeah, good for you. I don't know that there's a downside. Just I don't know what to tell you. Just be careful. Just make sure you prayerfully go forward, compare the teachings with Scripture. But as far as I know, I'm going to imagine they're pretty conservative. They certainly look conservative. All right, and our last one, our newest member, brand new minted member, Mr. Passport Spider. Shout out to you. Thank you, beloved. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for showing up early. Tomorrow, Lord willing, we'll be back at our normal scheduled time, 12 o'clock. Be here, be square. Are we growing? I never look at the numbers. Is our channel growing? Or our live stream growing? It will. We'll get up to 1,000, then we'll get up to 5,000. But I put my hand to the plow. Please pray for me. We are, as I say, at the tip of the spear and under constant attack in many different fronts. And God has brought an incredible group of men, the middlemen, together to support us and to help us with this, and we couldn't do it without them. Shout out to the middlemen. They make this possible, and we really appreciate that. So may God bless you and your families. Please keep us in your prayers, and we'll see you guys on the next live stream.